Hello and welcome to It's Not So Lonely at the Top podcast. This is a podcast for business leaders and business owners just like you. We're going to be sharing top tips on how to develop yourself personally and professionally. I'm going to be sharing updated podcasts on a regular basis, so please do make sure you subscribe, and I really hope you enjoy today's podcast. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the It's Not So Lonely at the Top podcast. This one I want to talk about fear and failure. And the question I want to ask yourself, is fear of failure holding you back? Because I must say, it's been a problem for me previously. And the issue with operating around fear of failure is what it means is that you make progress and it's very sneaky. It's very sneaky because what it is, it's like having the brakes on. And I deal with lots of leaders and support lots of leaders, and I just see that fear can be in the driving seat. And I think that sometimes it inhibits them from making the progress they need to make. So I really wanted to explore fear of failure today and just start to really break it down so that potentially you can support yourself, understand it, and overcome it, most importantly. So essentially, we're not really scared of failing. Our ego sort of plays a trick on us and makes us think that we're scared of failing. But actually, we're not really scared of something going wrong or something not working out. What we're actually scared of, and this is the really important emotional side for us to really get to grips with, is that what we're really worried about is the emotional side of being shunned from the crowd, or being seen as stupid, being found out for not being as intelligent as we think we are, for letting people down. You know, we're scared of letting other people down. We're scared of losing something. So whether it's money, control, status, those kinds of things, those are the things that actually we're worrying about. So when people are scared of making a podcast, for example, fear of failing, that they don't do a podcast because they're scared that no one will listen, they'll look stupid, or they'll be embarrassed about something. So I think it's really, really important to make sure that we sort of unpackage what we're actually scared of, so that we can really understand the emotional side. So we're really, really clear on what it is that we're scaring. But what I also want to do is reframe failure as part of this podcast, because the thing is failure is actually a really positive thing. Like that's where innovation happens when things go wrong. So failure is actually, and testing is a really, really important part of development, of improvement, of growth. And if you're not failing, if you're not failing at something, I'm suggesting that you're not trying hard enough. Like a really good example is a non-business related, just to keep it interesting, is obviously I love high rocks, right? I love physical exercise. I love pushing myself. I set a goal of doing a half marathon in 2 hours when the year before I'd done 2 hours 32. Like I was scared of failing, and actually I put it out there because the thing is I'm not going to look stupid. I'm not letting anyone down. I already admit that I'm not the best runner. If I didn't make a 2 hour time, I knew that I was going to make a load of progress to make it happen. So the fear of failure pushed me on, but actually it spurred me into action. I used it to my advantage. I knew that I needed to take serious action to enable that to actually become a reality. I hope that sort of makes sense. But actually, I ended up failing to do under 2 hours in the half marathon, but I still managed a massive success, which was 2 hours and 2 minutes. I was 30 minutes quicker than the previous year because of all of the work and effort I put into it. So I think realizing that failure is actually positive, and what it does is it just gives me another goal to go at this year, is to actually break the 2 hour mark. I set a 90-minute goal for High Rocks last year, and I missed it by 7 minutes, which is fine. I'm okay with that. I've made peace with it, and I'm not really embarrassed about it, but I failed, and it gives me another goal to go for this year. And that's where the growth happens. That's where it's very positive. The same with when I want to develop a new product or service or whatever it may be, as long as I can come to terms with the emotional side of failing, by having a go, it's going to take me to the next level. And one of the things that often goes wrong in organizations from a leadership perspective is when failure occurs is we look to allocate blame, for example. And I think that it's really important that actually we reframe failure as a learning opportunity. You know, there's the old saying of like, I don't fail, I earn or I learn. And, you know, so you try something new, it doesn't work out. If it worked, you'd have made more money. And actually, if it doesn't work, then you learn from it. And I think that's really important, is reframing failure around a learning opportunity where we've pushed our boundaries, we've gone outside of our comfort zone, and actually there's a real opportunity for us to learn, develop, to grow, whatever that may be. So I think why people are scared of failure. I think when I think about fear of failure, people, particularly in business, particularly in their work, people take it personally, and it starts to have an impact on their ego and their identity. And therefore, what that leads to is being safe in the decisions and the movements, and we move from taking risks to safety. And I think that the issue with being safe in everything we do is that we're not developing, growing, and pushing on, which is really why this podcast is important, why talking about fear of failure is important, because this podcast is all about growth and development and leadership and personal development. So I think getting to grips with understanding fear of failure and being able to overcome it is absolutely vital. So we need to separate our personal and our identity away from the fear of doing things wrong or failing, and realize the impact that it's having on are we staying safe? Where are we being too safe in the actions that we're taking because we're inhibiting growth? Hi, my name's Pete, and I want to thank you for tuning into today's podcast. I'm a coach, speaker, and author. And if you want to take your personal development that bit further, did you know that I offer a mastermind program as well as one-to-one coaching? If you're interested, please do reach out on peterushmer.com. And the issue with that is innovation dies, right? If we just stay safe, then nothing innovative, nothing creative ever happens. We don't take any risks. So I think, to coin a Rob Moore term, if we don't risk anything, we risk everything, right? That we have to have, or my perspective is we have to have risk. So, and what that does is it will lead to a different mindset in the way that we go about doing our work. So we'll play not to lose rather than to try and win. And, how are we ever really going to achieve anything if we always play not to lose? So I think that's a really interesting viewpoint or thought processes around, are we really trying to avoid loss? And, how can we ever really achieve anything if that's really what we're behaving? So listening to this, I really want you to sort of think about it and take your time, and to really think about and explore the different areas of your life about where is the fear of loss, where is the fear of failure, what is it you're avoiding, and how are you playing to avoid loss rather than actually playing to win? So I've got 3 key tips really to overcome fear of failure. 3 key tips. The first one, I think, is to separate yourself and your emotions from what it is you're scared of. So we help us to really sort of understand what to really sort of understand what it is we're scared of. Like I said earlier, around am I scared of looking stupid? Am I scared of being found out here, that I'm not actually as good as I think I am? Am I scared of losing status, money, control of something? Am I scared of letting people down? What is it that I'm actually scared of? And separate myself from it and go, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? If I actually do this and it does fail, is it so bad? Am I really going to lose my reputation over this? And it's a bit like I think about really sort of thinking about taking the emotion out of it. The second step, and you need to do sort of all three of these together. The second is to redefine the question. So rather than thinking about, well, what if it fails? Think about, how am I going to learn or grow from doing this? What's the benefit of actually just going ahead and doing it? Like, what potential outcome? What is the potential upside of doing it? And does that mitigate the potential downside? So really just sitting with it, reflecting on it, meditating on it. What is it that you're going to learn, grow, benefit from going and doing this thing? And what is the actual potential of it? Because if you don't try, you'll never learn. If you don't shoot, you won't score. You aim for the stars, you might reach the moon. Those kind of old cliches, they are all very true, right? So redefine the question. Don't think about how can I avoid failure, but what am I going to learn? What am I going to get? Where's the positive movement coming from? And the third thing is around mitigating the downside. So thinking of it, from a risk assessment perspective. So how can we mitigate or minimize the downside? So if it does go wrong, how are we going to manage that? How are we going to manage the emotions of it? How do we mitigate it? Is there anything we can do to reduce the losses or to manage the losses? And I would say if you can get to a point where you can mitigate the downside, you've redefined the question and what you're going for is worthwhile enough, and you can separate your ego and your identity and your emotions away from the outcome, you're ready to go, right? You're ready to go. Really sort of think about it. The reason this is really poignant to me is I was really reflecting. I'd listened to a podcast over the Christmas period, and I was reflecting on where I was holding myself back. What did I want to achieve last year that I didn't achieve, and why didn't I achieve it? And I think the most stark realization for me was I hadn't got to where I wanted to with my speaking. Yes, I'd done a TEDx talk, so I'd made great progress, but I really wanted to be paid to speak and speak at more opportunities last year. And what happened was I was being really sneaky. I was playing not to lose. I had a lot of things happen in Flagship which brought me back into the business. They weren't distractions. I was going to say distractions then. That's the wrong thing to say, because it was right that I went back into Flagship and did those. But I've allowed myself to use that as an excuse as to why I didn't do more speaking opportunities and more speaking engagements and push my speaking to the next level. And I think part of it is my fear of failing. It's about the growth side. And one of the things I need to separate myself from is if I've got to a point now where I'm scared of it not working out. If I push myself too much and it doesn't work out, I realized there was a level of emotionness there. So I needed to do step one, which was separate myself from that, because actually it doesn't really matter. Why am I letting my ego get in the way? Why am I worrying about the emotions of letting people down or whatever it may be? And the second thing is around redefining the question. So what if I go to do more speaking engagements and I fail at it, rather than thinking that is actually what are the potential upsides, which are huge. The more speaking I do, the more people I reach, the more people listen to me, the more people will listen to the podcast, the bigger the podcast will grow, the more people will get value from the message that I want to share, the bigger impact I'm going to have. So the second thing about redefining the question, that's huge, right? So it's really helped me to refocus on why I'm doing it and why I want to continue with my speaking in 2026. And then the third is around mitigating the downside. Well, the reality is there is no downside, right? I push myself out as a speaker and I'm going to make it work, right? There is no real downside. So I think that's been my reflection, and realizing that I was suffering with a fear of failure made me think that it's relevant for me to want to share it with my audience, for you guys. And all the time, we don't ever just overcome fear of failure. It crops up all the time for all of us. And we either move past it or we don't. And essentially the obstacle is the way, which is one of Ryan Holiday's books. But we've got to kind of move past that fear to get to the next thing. And then there'll be a new fear that we need to deal with. So using this strategy of the 3 steps around separating yourself and your emotions, so you really understand emotionally what's driving you, what it is you're actually scared of. Redefine the question to understand what the upside's going to be. And the third is to mitigate the downside. That's the strategy I use to overcome fear of failure. Really lean into it, really understand it, hold it up, and analyze it from all angles to make sure that it's what I really want to do and worthwhile, and that I'm going to move past it. And really, it just leaves me to ask you, the listener, to think about, what decision is it that you're circling right now? What is it that's in the way of you taking your next step? And what could you achieve if you overcame it? I really want you to think about those. I hope that's been interesting for you. I hope that you can use those 3 steps. How do you overcome fear of failure? I think hopefully that I've given some worthwhile things for you to think about. But I really want you to think about this. What decision is it you're circling right now? What is it you need to get past? Drop me a message. I'm here to help support you. I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to hearing you on a future episode. Speak to you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us on today's It's Not So Lonely at the Top podcast. We really hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. I'm absolutely delighted that you took the time to listen, and I really hope that you'll subscribe to ensure that you receive future episodes too. If you want to find out any more, please do search It's Not So Lonely at the Top podcast, and you'll find it on your favourite podcast app. Thank you.